In a world where artificial intelligence is used to control crime, one machine breaks free from its programming and discovers what it means to be truly human. This is the recap of the movie Chappie, a 2015 sci-fi action movie. It is a heart-pounding, emotional, and thought-provoking journey about the thin line that separates humans from AI-controlled robots. Let's dive into the futuristic world of Chappie and uncover the rise of a robot with a soul. In a near-future South Africa, the government struggles to control rising crime. To combat this, they deploy robotic law enforcers known as scouts, designed by the Tetraveil company. These highly efficient machines, programmed with an unhackable security key by their creator, Dion, enforce strict laws without deviation. Meanwhile, another Tetraveil engineer, Vincent, opposes artificial intelligence, arguing that human oversight is crucial. So, he developed a massive, remote-controlled combat robot called Moose, which is designed for heavy warfare. In the meantime, at the Tetraveil factory, a damaged scout, designated Scout 22, is brought in for repairs. The engineers note that this unit frequently sustains damage in the field. Once restored, it immediately arms itself and returns to duty. Meanwhile, a gang led by ninjas speeds out of the city as they try to evade pursuit. Despite their crash, they manage to arrive at the location where their crime boss Hippo was. However, he was furious over their messy heist and Hippo demands 20 million in compensation within a week. To prove his seriousness, he forces Ninja to swear his loyalty at gunpoint and executes one of his gang members. Before Ninja and his crew can formulate a plan, scout drones locate their hideout. They immediately called for reinforcements and soon, helicopters arrived with more scouts and police officers. A violent shootout erupts as gunfire and explosions ring out with Hippo's men returning fire. Amid the chaos, Ninja scrambles to escape but realizes the keys to their van are missing. As the scouts continue to eliminate the gang members, Ninja desperately searches for the car keys. One of the fleeing members is quickly neutralized and this allows Ninja to recover the keys. In a last-ditch effort to escape, he shoots at a helicopter, forcing it to retreat. Meanwhile, as police breach the gang's stronghold, Hippo counters with a rocket launcher and shoots down Scout 22 once again. Then he quickly seizes the moment and escapes through a window, while Ninja and his crew flee in the van. However, during their escape, Ninja's right-hand man, America, is shot and injured. With the gang now decimated, the media hails the operation as another triumph for the scouts. Encouraged by their effectiveness, the government orders 100 more units. In the meantime at Tetraveil, Vincent grows increasingly frustrated with CEO Michelle, who continues to cut funding for Moose in favor of Dion's scouts. Elsewhere, Dion is called to the repair lab, where an engineer assesses the damage to Scout 22. They discovered that the damage he sustained had fused its battery with the chest piece, now making it irreparable. So, Dion orders the salvaging of useful parts before discarding the remains. Now back at their hideout, the surviving thieves tend to America's injuries while plotting their next move. Knowing they need a way to disable the scouts, Yolandi speculates that someone at Tetraveil should be holding the key to shutting them down. As they search the internet, they immediately discover that their man is Dion, the creator of the scouts. Unaware of the danger looming, Dion continues his work at home trying to refine his latest project. After several hours of relentless coding, Dion finally succeeds in creating a groundbreaking program capable of granting artificial consciousness to robots. Eager to test his creation, he rushes to Michelle's office the next day, excitedly explaining how this advancement could make robots more intelligent than humans, even allowing them to compose music or poetry. However, Michelle is unmoved by his discovery. She tells him that her company is strictly focused on weapons and defense, leaving no room for such experiments. In the end, she denies Dion's request to test his new software at the company. Frustrated but still determined to continue, Dion takes matters into his own hands. He secretly removes Scout 22 from the facility, along with the necessary tools, including the guard key, which enables software modifications. Using his rank clearance, he bypasses security checks and leaves unnoticed. However, barely a mile down the road, his van is ambushed by Ninja's gang. They smash the windows and drag Dion out before knocking him unconscious. When Dion regains consciousness, he finds himself at the thieves' hideout. Ninja wastes no time, punching him hard and ordering him to cooperate. Dion explains that the scouts operate continuously, and their software is their only safeguard. Not convinced, Ninja threatens to shoot him until America discovers Scout 22 in the van. When they saw this, Ninja had an idea and he immediately demanded Dion to reprogram the robot for the gang. However, Dion warns them that the new software is untested, but they insist on proceeding. With no other options, Dion sets to work, repairing Scout 22's damaged components. The battery is in critical condition, leaving the robot with only 5 days of operational time. In the end, Dion uses the guard key to override its original programming and installs the consciousness software. When Scout 22 powers up, it behaves like a frightened toddler, immediately running away from the humans. Ninja's aggressive outbursts only intensify the robot's fear, making the others send him away. When they try a gentler approach, Scout 22 slowly emerges and cautiously reaches for Yolandi's hand. It soon becomes curious about Dion's watch, and when Dion gives it to him, the robot utters its first word. Encouraged by this progress, Dion provides a small chicken toy to keep it engaged. The robot begins recognizing names as it starts showing signs of learning. Yolandi, amused by its childlike nature, affectionately names it Chappie. But just as they start bonding with the robot, Ninja returns, furious that they are raising it like a child instead of a weapon. Enraged by this, he kicks Dion out, even threatening to kill him. However, Dion convinces Ninja that Chappie requires proper training. Reluctantly, Ninja agrees, allowing Dion to leave on the condition that he returns the next day. Meanwhile, at Tetravale, Vincent notices the guard key is missing. When he checks the system, he discovers it has been installed in Scout 22. The next morning, he finds Dion researching child development online. So, he quickly draws close and asks to borrow the guard key. When Dion refuses, Vincent suddenly slams him onto the desk, threatening him with a gun. But when Dion stands his ground, Vincent quickly withdraws and laughs it off as a joke. After work that day, Vincent follows Dion, suspecting something unusual was on. At the hideout, Chappie, who is still curious, explores his surroundings and interacts with objects to learn, but Ninja is unimpressed. When he spots Chappie watching the news, Ninja reminds the robot of its true purpose and begins teaching it how to use a gun. The robot hesitates in fear and misses his shot, which only fuels Ninja's frustration. Before he can react aggressively, Yolandi steps in, reminding him that Chappie needs to learn the basics first. She begins teaching him words by showing him different objects, and soon, Chappie surprises her by forming complete sentences. He identifies America by name, but he calls Yolandi mother. America takes over Chappie's training, introducing him to street slang and curse words in an attempt to make him sound more intimidating. When Dion arrives, he is unimpressed to hear Chappie mimicking gangster talk and threats. So, in his determination to steer him in a different direction, he makes Chappie promise not to engage in illegal activities. To further develop his intellect, Dion introduces him to reading and painting. Meanwhile, Vincent observes Chappie's progress and realizes that the key was in Chappie. So he leaves and tries to formulate a plan. Back at the hideout, Chappie demonstrates his artistic skills by creating a perfect drawing of a car. However, the moment is ruined when Ninja, who just arrived, is enraged by Dion's influence on Chappie and he violently kicks him to the ground. He even brandishes a gun and threatens Dion's life, but Yolandi intervenes just in time, allowing Dion to escape in his van. Yolandi attempts to explain to Ninja that Chappie is like a child, but their discussion is interrupted when America gets a call about a potential job. Seeing an opportunity to toughen Chappie up, Ninja and America take him to a rival gang's hideout and leave him there. The gang immediately assumes he's another scout robot and launches a brutal attack on him, pelting him with objects, beating him with pipes, and even setting him on fire. Despite the assault, Chappie refuses to fight back as he had made a promise to Dion not to hurt anyone. Eventually, he finds an opening and escapes, wandering through the city until he stops to rest. There, he sees a stray dog and as he gently pets it, Vincent and his men track him through the company's system and arrive on the scene. Without hesitation, Vincent disables Chappie with an electronic device. When Chappie awakens, he finds himself inside Vincent's truck. As he struggles against his restraints, he can only watch as Vincent cruelly cuts off his arm and removes the key from his head, reminding him that he is nothing more than a machine. With no further use for him, Vincent prepares to finish him off. But this time, Chappie fights back. Mustering his remaining strength, he overpowers the men and leaps out of the truck. Although the men open fire on him and damage him further, he manages to escape. Vincent lets him go, believing he is now worthless. Later that night, Chappie eventually makes it back to the hideout, where Yolandi tends to his injuries and berates Ninja for what he has done. America manages to salvage old parts to repair him, giving him a new arm. That night, Yolandi reads him a story about a black sheep, telling him that his soul is more important than his mechanical body. The next day, Dion secretly buys a gun while Chappie plays with a doll, imagining it as Yolandi and calling himself special. Later on, Ninja approaches him and, in an uncharacteristic moment, apologizes, calling himself Chappie's daddy. However, his tough love approach remains. He soon forces Chappie to drop the doll, and he begins teaching him how to walk like a gangster. When Chappie refuses to fire a gun, Ninja grows frustrated, but America steps in with an alternative as he teaches Chappie how to use a knife, explaining that it simply makes people go to sleep. Since Chappie falls for the lie, the gang takes full advantage of his ignorance. They teach him how to throw shurikens and use nunchucks, reshaping him into their version of a gangster. To complete his transformation, they give him a paint job and some jewelry, making him look fully gangster. The next day, as Ninja tries to steal a car, he manipulates Chappie by claiming that the vehicle's owner originally stole from them. Without hesitation, Chappie confronts the man and begins tearing the car apart, even ripping off the door in a fit. As he berates the man for being a thief, he forcibly drags him out and throws him across the street. However, Ninja and America quickly call Chappie back to the van, scolding him for damaging the car. To further shape him into their perfect criminal, they hand him a gun, assuring him that he doesn't have to fire it, only use it as a tool of intimidation. Over the next few hours, Chappie successfully steals multiple cars, easily scaring off the drivers, who mistake him for a police scout. With their newly acquired fortune from selling the stolen vehicles, Ninja and America indulge in an extravagant shopping spree, purchasing weapons and video game consoles. Meanwhile, while the two make the purchase, Chappie stays outside an abandoned building where gangsters are gathered for an illegal dogfight. The moment they see him, they assume he's a law enforcement bot and flee in panic. While Chappie waits for the two to return, he stumbles upon a grim sight of a dead dog lying nearby, while another remains trapped in a cage. This discovery saddens him, but when Ninja returns, he offers a cold perspective, claiming that life is a brutal cycle where one must either fight to survive or perish. When Chappie insists he is beyond such concerns due to his robotic nature, Ninja tells him a harsh truth: his battery will eventually deplete, and he will die just like any other being. The only solution is to acquire a new battery, but to afford it, they must pull off a high-stakes heist. Now desperate to stay alive, Chappie agrees to help. Upon returning to their hideout, they find Dion waiting for them. He is disappointed by Chappie's drastic transformation and Dion tries to reason with him, but the robot now harbors resentment towards him. He sees his limited lifespan as an act of cruelty from his creator and dismisses Dion's concerns. Meanwhile, at Tetravale Labs, Vincent Key begins his sinister plan. Using the stolen key, he uploads a firmware update called Genesis into the Scout system. Instantly, all robotic police units shut down, leading to widespread chaos of car crashes, jailbreaks, and a high level of unchecked crime wave. Chappie also collapses, and as Dion checks on him, Ninja arrives and Dion blames him for the malfunction. As tensions rise, Dion is forced to pull out his gun to keep Ninja at bay before dragging Chappie into his van and heading back to the company. With no law enforcement left, criminals seize the opportunity. Hippo immediately declares himself the ruler of the city, and rioters take to the streets, looting and wreaking havoc. The last active scout collapses before them, and the mob sets it ablaze. In a desperate attempt to regain control, human police officers begin arming themselves, though they lack the proper training for such a crisis. At Tetravale, Vincent watches the destruction unfold, satisfied with his work. To erase any evidence of his involvement, he initiates the deletion of Genesis, but the process will take time. Just then, Dion arrives with Chappie, forcing Vincent to hide. Dion connects Chappie to the computer and quickly discovers the warning about a malicious code. But instead of deleting it, he quarantines Genesis as he prioritizes Chappie's revival. Meanwhile, on another screen, the deletion process fails. Moments later, Chappie reboots with his personality intact. As they prepare to leave, they stumble upon Vincent's combat robot, Moose. Intrigued by the creation, Chappie inquires about the machine, which makes Dion explain that Moose is piloted remotely by a human wearing a thought-controlled helmet, allowing for full control by the human. Around the corner, Chappie stumbles upon an unfinished scout model and decides it should be his new body. However, Dion explains that transferring him isn't possible because he is more than just data, rather he has a consciousness. Vincent, eavesdropping on their conversation, grows even more resentful towards Dion. Enraged that Dion continues to make things more difficult than they should be, Chappie declares his hatred for him as he steals the helmet and runs off alone. Meanwhile, as police surround the company building, Vincent hurriedly shuts down his computer and leaves in a panic as he inadvertently leaves the key behind. Back at work, Dion soon meets with Michelle, who warns him to resolve the situation immediately or face serious consequences. Around this time, Vincent seizes the opportunity to push for deploying Moose, but Michelle remains uninterested. Now back at the gang's hideout, Chappie experiments with the stolen helmet on Yolandi, discovering it works perfectly with their small computer. Encouraged by this success, he attempts to upload his consciousness, but the initial attempts fail. Determined to make it work, he connects the gang's computer to multiple video game consoles for additional processing power. Finally, the helmet successfully extracts Chappie's essence, displaying it on the screen. Now, all he needs is money for a new body. So, with no other option, Chappie and the gang prepare for a heist. They ambush an armored truck on the highway, and Chappie, under the belief that he is merely putting the guards to sleep, stabs them. Once the door is blown open, he forcefully removes the remaining guards and proceeds to steal the cash, all the while the reporters capture the scene from a helicopter. As he collects the money, he notices a wounded guard rolling in pain. Confused by the sight, he wonders why the man wasn't asleep yet, but the gang quickly drags him into the getaway van. Back at Tetravale, Dion investigates the system and traces Genesis back to Vincent's computer. Furious, he confronts him, but their argument is interrupted by news reports showing Chappie committing robbery on the highway. Immediately capitalizing on the gravity of the situation, Vincent rushes to Michelle and frames Dion as the culprit behind Genesis, proving his point by showing her the broadcast. Seeing no other choice, Michelle authorizes the use of Moose. Vincent wastes no time and immediately links his mind to his deadly creation, deploying it to hunt down Chappie. Meanwhile, Hippo, upon seeing the news, decides he wants Chappie for himself. As Chappie and his crew return from the heist, he's elated, believing the money will secure him a new body. But his joy is short-lived when Ninja reveals the truth: there was never going to be a new body. Furious at the betrayal, Chappie grabs Ninja by the throat and slams him to the ground. Before tensions escalate further, Dion arrives with a warning that an attack on them is imminent. He then reveals a powerful weapon capable of taking down robots, but before they can react, Hippo and his men storm their location and demand for the money and Chappie. Moments later, a chaotic gunfight erupts, but the battle takes a more deadly turn when Moose arrives under Vincent's control. The massive machine crushes America under its foot before tearing his body apart. Although Ninja fires back, his bullets are useless against Moose's armor, and this eventually forces him into hiding. Without hesitation, Moose activates its flamethrower and incinerates Hippo's men. Vincent then commands it to drop cluster bombs, wiping out nearly everyone, except Hippo, who takes cover inside a pipe. As Ninja desperately tries to salvage his money, Yolandi pulls him to safety. In the meantime, Moose turns its sights on Dion and prepares to eliminate him. But before it can strike, Chappie intervenes, using the weapon Dion had provided. He attaches an explosive to Moose's body and fires as he successfully destroys its arm. Just as he's about to finish it off, Moose retaliates, shooting him down and making the detonator fall from his hand. With the battle raging on, Hippo joins Ninja in attacking Moose, forcing it to retreat as Vincent scrambles to repair its damaged camera. Meanwhile, when Dion tries to escape, Hippo intercepts him and ends up shooting him from behind. Enraged by this, Ninja responded by killing Hippo with a shovel. When Chappie realizes that Dion is gravely injured, he quickly rushes him into the van as he desperately tries to save his creator. At that moment, Vincent successfully fixes Moose's camera, bringing the robot back into action. It immediately resumes its relentless attack, chasing after them with a hail of gunfire. As Chappie rushes to retrieve his helmet, a stray bullet breaks it. Realizing he needs another to save Dion, he decides to head to the factory. Ninja instructs him to take Yolandi and leave in the van while he stays behind to distract Moose. As soon as the van leaves, Ninja drops to his knees as he accepts his fate. Moose prepares to destroy him, but before it can fire, Yolandi jumps out of the van and uses a special weapon to attack. In retaliation, Vincent commands Moose to turn and shoot her down before Chappie can reach her. Devastated by her death, Chappie finds the detonator and triggers the explosion, finally destroying Moose. Afterward, Chappie drives to Tetravale with Dion in the truck. There, he finds Vincent attempting to flee. To slow him down, Chappie throws a screw into his leg, but Vincent still manages to limp toward the main office. As he fires at Chappie in desperation, the workers scatter in terror. Unharmed by his attempts, Chappie overpowers him, throwing him through a window and smashing him through a wall. He then methodically breaks Vincent's arm and tosses him around the office like a rag doll. With Vincent barely clinging to life, Chappie finally leaves him behind and offers his forgiveness before walking away. Meanwhile, the police arrive and begin breaking down the door. So, Chappie carries Dion to the lab and connects him to the helmet and successfully uploads his consciousness into a robotic body. Almost instantly, Dion awakens in the robotic body with his mind fully transferred. Grateful for his new existence, Dion accesses Vincent's computer, using a key to reactivate all the deactivated scouts. He then uploads Chappie's consciousness into another robotic body through the internet. As the police finally break in, Dion quickly rushes outside and is overjoyed to see Chappie now inhabiting a fresh scout body on the street. Together, they return to their base, where they join Ninja in giving Yolandi a proper burial. Soon after, news reports confirm that robotic police officers have been permanently banned, restoring human forces to law enforcement. However, Chappie recovers a USB containing Yolandi's consciousness from an earlier experiment he had conducted. Determined to bring her back, he hacks the factory's machines, constructing a sleek, female robotic body. Then with everything in place, he prepares for the long-awaited reunion, ensuring Yolandi's mind will soon inhabit her new form. And that was the story of Chappie, a tale that challenges our perception of consciousness, morality, and what it truly means to be alive. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more movie recaps just like this. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.